Just to say something about practice, a way that I hold practice, personal practice. Even the word practice, it often sounds like, oh, this is a big, it's a discipline you do. I do my practice every day. I see practice as like practicing a sport. If you're practicing tennis, the more you practice it, the better you get. And I think it's the same with being present or with meditation or whatever it is. The more you do it, the more you get to understand yourself, the more you get to see your own inner limitations, the more free you can become of that. And what I've become fascinated myself recently, as I was talking about earlier, just seeing how simple this is getting. When I first got involved in all this area, it used to be like, this is such a complex thing with all these complex practices, and maybe future lives, the great awakening will happen. But as time goes on, it just gets simpler and simpler and simpler. It's just noticing the things that go on inside us that just keep us apart from our own nature, our own essence, that stop us being at ease. And for me, meditation has been a really important part of that. And again, that gets simpler. For me now, meditation, it used to be complex techniques. Now it's simply just sitting and just opening up to the totality of what is in the present moment. And just the practice of that getting easier and easier. So, to summarize, to give us time for about 10 minutes of questions, I think this tide that's happening in our culture, that's been going on the last 40 years, is unstoppable. It's unstoppable because the yearning is there. It's what everybody is yearning for, is some deeper inner fulfillment awakening. It's unstoppable because the crisis we're in is showing up almost everywhere, that it comes back to our consciousness, that we're stuck in this old mode of consciousness, that we need to awaken. And it's almost a pattern of evolution itself, just the awakening of consciousness. And so for me, I think this is the most fascinating point in the whole of human history. I wouldn't swap this era for any other time ever. And right now, I think the beginning of this millennium is the time when everything is coming to a head, and which way we go depends so much on us, not only what we do in the world, but how we are inside and how we can actually promote our own awakening, how we can develop a more sustainable consciousness. And so to say, if this is the tide that's behind LOHAS, that's what LOHAS is a symptom of, then what can we do to further that tide in ourselves and in the world, to actually have that happen even faster? Because I think what's going to see us through these times is going to be the collective awakening of the species. And this is the point in history where we can do it, and we're being pushed to do it. So I'll pause there. So questions, if we can turn the house lights up a little bit, then I can see who's asking questions. Yes, you in the middle, yep.
Yeah, you say that we're making a lot of headway and gaining a lot of traction on this collective conscious awakening, yet we don't seem to see that evident in any of our political dealings in our governments and nations.
Right.
So, what's your feeling on the disconnect?
Yeah. I think political leaders are the last people to change. In fact, Plato said it all. Plato said anybody who wants to be a leader should immediately be barred. The very fact that someone wants to be a leader is usually a sign that we should be cautious. But I mean, to also be that's slightly flippant, but to be more serious, generally politics lags behind what's happening in culture. I mean, we see this with the Green movement. I mean, and it's, I think, probably clearer in Europe, where the Green movement really entered politics back 20 years ago. The Green movement came out of individuals, an awakening of individuals to environmental concerns. It became a widespread grassroots concern, which became strong enough that within various European countries, because of different electoral systems, you could have a 15% swing towards green amongst the people, and that could result in a 15% swing in government. And then what you saw happening was the established politicians, I was going to say wising up, but it wasn't wisdom, but just saying, whoops, okay, this is where we should go. If that's where the people are going, then we should change our policies. And so government started changing in Europe as a result of that, because they saw if they were going to keep their positions, if they were going to stay in power, they needed to adopt green policies. So I think the political arena is the last area we should see this. I mean, the area where we are seeing it is what, you know, LOHAS is about. We're seeing it in people making personal choices about consumption, about what companies they support, about how they live their lifestyles. Unfortunately. But then, of course, you know, we've got new brands of politicians emerging, apparently. It seems to be. We're, you know, tapping into that pulse. We'll see where that leads.
Hopefully so.
Hopefully, but then I also know, I think once you get into positions of power, you're so trapped by all the different pressure groups. I would hate to have a really great vision and find myself strapped by all those different lobbies and things. Someone else? Yes?
Yeah, how do you see the concept of growth? You have worked with corporations from the spiritual view.
So I can't hear you clearly.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
How do you see the concept of growth in capitalism?
The concept?
So, growth.
In capitalism?
Economical growth, yeah. So I only heard like Eckhart Tolle mention that concept, but nobody really pay attention to the core of our economical reality, that is growth.
Mm-hmm.
And we see now that, you know, the tendency usually is that. So a company has to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow in the push of the stockholder.
Yeah.
And we see China now. There was a beautiful program in PBS about the young and the restless in China. All the concept is to create a company and become rich and grow.
Mm-hmm.
So they are trying to copy the system. Well, in Europe, they are into the cooperative, co-creation, ownership of the ones who create the business. Yeah. How do you see that? What trend do you see toward that reality?
I see a couple of things here. One, I think well, partly there's the whole capitalist system. It's hard to say just capitalism, but the economic system we've got caught in keeps us trapped in this thing of growth, and it gets into a whole other subject, but I think, I mean, just to say very briefly, the charging of interest, usury, is behind a lot of it, because so much money in our system is out on loan. Something like 90% of the money that's circulating is out on loan. That interest has to be paid back. In order not to have inflation to pay back the interest, you have to keep the growth of a culture going. That's part of the reason. And it's interesting that just about every religion in its time has banned the charging of interest, and people have always got around it in some way. Because, you know, it's this thing, it comes back to this, want more for ourselves. If I can make a bit more money, I'll be happier. And I think a lot of what lies behind the excesses of capitalism is this belief system that if I just have a bit more, do a bit more control, a bit more power, more resources, I will be happier. And I think that's the fundamental belief that is being gradually questioned in our culture. And the real growth, I think the real growth we're looking for is that inner growth. And we just get caught up in the assumption that if I can do the outer growth, I'm going to feel better. But really, I think the wisdom that's there in humanity, which we are beginning to wake up to, is, no, I can grow in myself as a human being, as an individual, without having to grow externally. But it's not going to be that easy. I think I think our whole economic system is going to go through some serious, serious challenges, and pretty quickly. Pretty quickly. I mean, the whole food crisis that's happening now, it's just come up in the last few months, is basically an economic crisis. It's not about the lack of food, it's about the cost of food escalating, which is about commodity markets and all of that, but it's having a major impact on the third world. There's going to be a lot of questioning going on about what are we doing here. But it's a huge, complex subject, I think.